Now, being self-employed gives you a lot of freedom, but it comes with some responsibilities, and your taxes are one of them. If you drove for Uber, Lyft, delivered with DoorDash, this is just your case. Now, your taxes are more complicated than regular W-2 employees. They're still simple enough, so you can file them yourself without hiring any professionals. And even if you decide to use some software like TurboTax or hire someone, you can still use this video to double check that person's work to make sure your number and her numbers kind of match. This tutorial shows how to file your taxes for free if you're self-employed. Now, I have to make some assumptions. There are too many cases. I can't cover every single situation. If you feel like your case is different, you can send me an email or you can just write in comments. But I have to make some assumptions that apply to most of the people, such as the income level, the filing status, and so on. But again, if you feel like your case is different, feel free to ask. So enough talking, let's get down to business. So the software we'll be using is called Free File Fileable Forms. There's a pretty sign-up process. I'm not gonna go over that. I'll just sign in. Then once you're signed in, you're gonna need Form 1040. You may qualify for easier versions of this form, but in general, choose 1040 and you won't be wrong. This is the main tax form. You're gonna use that as reference to all your income sources. Also, we're gonna use some of the instructions, Schedule C instructions. The easiest way to find them is just to Google them. There you go. We're gonna need the 1040 instructions, just in case. And also the tax table. So 1040, this form has your name, your filing status, all your income, and the tax you owe. Let's start filing. Name, well, pretty easy. Let's do Jenny Gonzalez. Then the social security number, just zeros, you put your social security. Let's assume she's not married, so we're just gonna skip the joint return part. So we're just gonna put her address in. Pretty easy, self-explanatory, the beginning part. There you go, this is pretty much it. Now for filing status, we're just gonna assume she's single. For more information about filing status, there's actually a video about it, or ask me a question if you have any. For the sake of this case, we're just gonna assume she is single, and for exemptions, she can only exempt herself. So we're gonna choose 6A, yourself. Again, for more information about exemptions, watch the video about filing status, or just ask me directly a question. Now let's move on to the income section. Well, I'm not gonna cover all of them. They don't usually apply to everyone. The main purpose is to cover the business income. One thing you may probably have, if you had another job, you may have a W-2, then you would just attach your W-2, enter the income from there on line 7, and that's pretty much it. So in this video, we're only gonna cover the business income, line 12. It says add Schedule C, so just press add. And there you go. So profit loss from business, or simply Schedule C. We're gonna start with the name of proprietor, just the same name, just your name, your social security number, nothing fancy here. For principal business profession, I'd like to show you how to use the instructions. So each line on Schedule C has a reference in the instructions. So if you want to know What does line 6 mean on Schedule C? You're just going to the instructions, say other income. What does that mean? So you're simply going to go to the instructions and find the line 6 and you can read about that. So that's how instructions work. Now the principal business activity, this is what you'll need to type. If your business is different, I'll show you in a moment how to find and enter the business code. You're gonna go all the way to the bottom of the Schedule C instructions. You can see activity codes. Here you can find your business activity and you can find the code you were looking for. In our case, it's going to be 485300. If you can't find, you can always put 69 and that means unidentified business. You can do that. So for business name, if you have a separate business name, that's probably not the case for you, but if you do, go ahead, enter that name. Employee identification number, unless you hire someone, you're not gonna have this, so forget about this. The business address, if you don't have a separate office, just put your home address. There you go, just now, more serious stuff, the accounting method. Most of the time you're gonna be using the cash method. Can't really think of a situation you'll want to use the accrual method or any other method because you get paid within 1 week when you after you provide the services. The only time it makes sense to use accrual method is when there's a big gap between you providing the services and you getting paid. So just forget about this, just use cash, that's the easiest. Feel like your case is different, ask me a question. There we go. Now, did you materially participate in the operation of the business? Of course you did. Then we're gonna mark yes. Did you start the business? Well, if you did, then you mark. We're gonna assume she did start her business in 2017, so we're gonna mark this. Now, did you make any payments that would require 1099? Unless you hired a contractor to do some work for you, which is most likely not the case for you, you're not gonna mark yes. So we're gonna mark no, and eventually J doesn't apply to us. Part 2, the income. Now, gross receipts or sales. This is a sample 1099 form or summary form that you'll get from your company. Yours may look different. What are you going to look for is the gross income, not the net amount that's been deposited to your bank account, and I'll explain you in a second why not. So in this case, it's $75,649. Now, the reason you don't want to use the net amount deposited to your bank account because some of the deductions the company may make are not tax deductible, and you'll see why. Also, it's important to understand that you are the business owner and it's your ultimate responsibility to find out how much you earned. So even if you don't get the form, you still have the responsibility to log your income, track your income, and correctly report it. And if you haven't done it, unfortunately, you'll have to go through your bank accounts and find all the deposits. Not the best way, but anyway, so you shouldn't worry about cost of goods sold or other income or stuff like that. You don't have them. If you feel like you do, let me know. Now the expenses. Advertising, most likely you don't. It can be flyers or like business cards you made. So if you had any, I don't expect the amount to be very significant. The car and truck expenses, line 9, probably the most important deduction you may have. Now, the first thing you may want to know about this is how many miles you drove. There are two methods of figuring out your deductions, but both of them require the mileage. So let's say it's 50,338. Now, I said there are two methods. So one of them is the actual expenses. So just as the name suggests, you're going to take all the expenses you had, such as the gas, the maintenance, like oil changes. Also, operation doesn't mean just the physical operation of the car, anything that legally allows you to operate the car, such as your insurance or your vehicle registration costs, can be included here. And also depreciation, lease, or rent. Now, most likely you're not gonna use this method. There's an easier way for you. The reason I'm telling you about this, so you get like a general estimate about your actual expenses, and see if, in case if they are higher than the standard deduction, the standard mileage, then you may want to use this one, but most likely it's not the case. Well, it's not an accounting tutorial, so I'm not gonna go too deep into what's the depreciation. In general, when you buy an asset in accounting, you can't write off the entire amount right away. So you have to depreciate it. You have to divide it in the number of years you'll be using it, and only depreciate like one part of it. Because some people ask me, if they bought a car in 2017 for $20,000, can they just write off the entire amount? No, you can't, unfortunately. You have to go through depreciation, and that's a pretty complicated process. Now, you don't just drive your car for business. You also use the car to pick up your children, to go for shopping, and other personal reasons. So you can't write off the entire actual expenses amount. So you're gonna take the miles you drove for business, divide them by total miles you drove, and this will give you your allocation rate. That's pretty much the percentage of time you use your car just for business. Let's take a look at this example. So let's say you drove for business for 50,000 miles, 50,338 miles. Also, you drove 3,000 miles for personal reasons. So you're just gonna take your business miles, 50K divided by 53K, and it will give you around 0.94 or 94%, just the way you prefer. Internal Revenue Service allows you round the numbers. Totally fine, you can leave it 0.94, you can omit the decimals after. So that's your allocation rate, that's the multiplier. You have to multiply your actual expenses to get actually the business part of the actual expenses. So total expenses multiplied by allocation rate plus some non-operational costs like parking and toll, because they're not operational costs. Like if you don't pay the toll, you'll get a ticket, but it doesn't prevent you from driving legally. So that's a non-operational cost. And yeah, let's take a look. Let's say your total expenses were $15,000 times 0.94, 14,100. And also you spent $398 on parking and tolls. So total will be $14,498. Those are your actual expenses. Now, standard mileage. Most likely you'll be using this one because it's easier and it's usually generous enough for most of the cars in the range of $25,000, $35,000. Now, what you do, you just take all the miles you drove for business and you multiply by a rate. And that rate as of 2017 is 53.5 cents. And this will give you a straight answer how much you can deduct as of your car and truck expenses without any complications. Well, there's still some work to do, but it's much easier. Now, those are usually the miles you can include. Those are usually the business miles. If anything is unclear, just ask me. Now, you can't include your commute miles. Yes, you commute for